Welcome to Pieces for My Puzzle. I'm your host, Nikki Ship, and I'm excited to be sharing with you my life with a son on the spectrum. This podcast is for anyone who is looking for quick tips and perspective, but most of all, for hope and inspiration. So sit back, relax, and let's put the pieces together. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Pieces for My Puzzle. I'm your host, Nikki Ship. Thank you so much for joining us today. Last week, we had the great honor and pleasure of speaking with Dr. Christopher Scott Wyatt. If you didn't get a chance to tune into that episode, please do. I greatly appreciated the conversation that we had and just want to thank Dr. Wyatt again for all of his valuable insights, especially when it comes to college education. So if you didn't get a chance, please check out that episode. This week, I'm especially excited because I am going to have Dr. Candace Holmes on the show today. Dr. Holmes is a passionate advocate for drug-free, non-invasive solutions to neurological conditions. As the founder of BrainCore Neurofeedback in Duluth, Georgia, Dr. Holmes helps patients across the United States regain control of their mental health through personalized neurofeedback therapy. Inspired by her own experience as a parent helping her child overcome ADHD symptoms without medication, Dr. Holmes has dedicated her career to empowering others with natural, effective alternatives. On this episode, she'll be sharing many insights into how neurofeedback therapy can transform lives and why addressing the whole person is the key to lasting wellness. Please welcome Dr. Candace Holmes to the show today. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Yes, I'm so excited. It's been a while since we've last spoken, but I enjoyed our conversation so much that I've been squealing to have you on the show because I think you're going to have so much wonderful information for our audience. But why don't you start off by just telling our audience a little bit about your background and what led you to specialize in neurofeedback therapy?
Sure. So I have to go all the way from where I was born and reared, Detroit. Have to do that. You have to do a little shout out to my hometown.
There you go. Yeah, get
I
that
went
in
to
there.
undergrad. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I left Detroit and went to New Orleans for undergrad in biology and pre-med, which was chemistry as a minor at Xavier University of Louisiana. There are two Xaviers. I went to the HBCU one. And then I went to
Okay.
chiropractic school in at Marietta in Georgia at Life University. And it was there that I learned about, the natural ways that the body heals itself. And so graduated from there, started practicing, and, I actually met my husband in chiropractic school. He's not a chiropractor, but he was finishing his undergraduate degree. And so got married, had children, and our oldest was struggling. So much so in kindergarten, I had to hold her back. And that was even hard for me to do because I'm like, it's kindergarten. Like, what do you mean I need to hold her back? And so when she's in the system and some other stuff, I was really hot about it. And so time went on and she wasn't meeting the milestones, and she was already she was petite when she was born. Let me back up. She was 4 pounds, 10.8 ounces.
Oh my
I
goodness,
was
small
36
baby.
weeks and 5 days. Petite, but strong. Didn't have to go to ICU or anything. She didn't have to go to NICU. She was in perfect health, just
Wow.
petite. And so, I was told that she was going to, take a little longer to reach those milestones. So, she wasn't crawling. I had to put her in physical therapy. I didn't even know they had physical therapy for infants, and they do.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
then around 7, I ended up, I was talking to one of my cousins, and she said, well, maybe just have her tested. Maybe something that you don't know about. And I'm like, tested? Like, what are you talking about? So it's okay, well, whatever. So I got her tested at a child psychologist when she was 7, and she was diagnosed with ADHD. And I'm like, no.
What? Yeah.
That's a catch-all. Like, no, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, nobody in my family has it, so whatever. And so I was totally in denial. And then time went on, and even after my daughter finished her sessions with the child psychologist, she asked me, are you sure you don't want to put her on medication? I said, no. My background is in chiropractic. We try to stay away from medications as often as possible. I was not going to dim her light. I was not going to, put drugs in her body. I was going to avoid that at all costs. And so I later came to understand that, ADHD has a hereditary component because I had checked all sides of my family. And then I happened to ask, at this point, me and my ex-husband were divorced. And so I asked his cousin, I said, so anybody on your side? She said, well, and Like, oh, like, there it is, because I thought, I was thinking it's my side, like, no, 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 no. And so, unfortunately, I was punishing my daughter for, her not doing well in school, not being able to focus, all those things. I was reared Catholic as well. And so, you just did what you were told. There was no, what do you mean you
Right.
can't do it? And what do you mean, and so, um, when she was about 13, I was going through one of my chiropractic magazines, and there was an article in there that mentioned a drug-free therapy. It was non-invasive. The results can last up to 30 years, and it said ADHD, anxiety, and depression. And I'm, what is that? And
Wow.
so that's how I found out about neurofeedback therapy. So I
Okay.
called and found out more about it, and found out that it's BrainCore is founded by one of my former chiropractic professors who was trying to find a solution for his nephew who has Asperger's.
Okay.
And you know how you're in school and you have a peer who is just so brilliant, like they can teach you the lesson better than the teacher could or better than your professor
Yes.
could.
Mm-hmm.
That's who that was. That's who founded BrainCore. And I'm like, wait a minute. If he found it, there has to be something to it. And so
Right.
that's how I started.
Wow. And you
Yeah.
started when she was 13, you said. Is that
She was
correct?
13. She
Wow.
was
So
13. And
so
I
it wasn't
always
like
say,
she was younger. Okay.
no, no.
Yeah.
She was struggling so much in school. I didn't think she'd go to college. I mean, it was taking about 5 hours a night to do homework. I had her on a 504 plan. I didn't even want to do that, but I was a substitute teacher for 4 years because I moved back to Atlanta during the recession.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know all these, the acronyms, the IEP, 504, what? It's like teacheries. Like, what are you talking about? And
I know.
so when she hit middle school, that's when I was like, oh my gosh, like it's just coming hot and heavy, all the pressures, all the homework, everything. And so I said, maybe I need to put her on IEP, and that was
And
a challenge, just getting that tweaked. And like I said, she was struggling. And it was taking about 5 hours a night to do homework, and she was socially awkward. She was getting bullied in school. I didn't even realize it. And it wasn't a physical bullying. It was more of a emotional, mental, where
emotional,
no one would sit
mental.
with her at
Mm-hmm.
lunchtime. And it was really uh,
Which
180 from what her younger sister was experiencing, because she's gifted and accelerated. And even she noticed
okay.
the difference. So why doesn't she have trouble, staying focused? Why doesn't she have trouble finishing homework? Why does she have, And I was just like, everybody's different, So
Right.
um,
And
that was the
especially
biggest
entering those
challenge.
teenage years, it's so difficult because
Yes.
now you're dealing with all the other changes that are coming
Oh,
with
I was going
becoming
to
a
say the
teenager.
hormones. Woo,
Yeah, I know. Mine
woo,
just turned 13 a few days ago, so it's like, oh, here we go.
woo.
I'm so
God
excited
bless
for
you.
this. I
God
know.
bless you. Yes.
I know. I'm like getting ready to run my marathon is what I
Woo.
always say. But
Yes. Yes.
so it was kind of always you. So I'm guessing what inspired you to go the more the non-invasive, the drug-free approach was just because of your background already in chiropractics. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Once we
And
learned how the body can fix itself, it's like, why are we trying to introduce
why,
medications? Yeah.
right, right. And had you been already and she'd already been going through chiropractic care already too
Oh, she,
prior
she
to all
was eight
this,
hours
right?
old.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So
She's
since
been
she was
adjusted.
little. Okay.
Oh, yes.
Right.
Yes. I nursed her too, which is vital too, to get, all the necessary immune,
Right.
benefits from that. So everything that, I could have done, I did prenatal yoga, all the things,
Right.
all the things.
Which
That's why when she was,
Which I explain to people, it's so hard too, because as a mother, when you feel like you're doing all the right things and it's still not working, it's like it's just a different. You
it's a
almost have to.
guilt.
Well, it's the guilt, and you have to enter a different mentality so that you can continue to move forward to help your child, right?
Absolutely.
Because
Absolutely.
I
My,
feel
my
that way too.
ex-husband had to, yeah,
Yeah.
he had
Oh
to talk
yeah.
me off the wall a couple of times because I was like,
I
what
mean,
did I do wrong? I don't understand.
yeah, I had people that were like, "Oh, maybe it was the drugs during the delivery," and I'm like, "I didn't have any drugs. I had a drug-free birth. Like oh,
That's
maybe
not
it
it.
was this." I'm like, nope, I didn't do that either. So it was,
No.
it's always a little interesting when that starts happening because you don't know how to continue to help your kids, and you have to start looking for things. You have to start thinking outside the box, right?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
now, for those who may not be familiar, what exactly can you tell our listeners today what exactly neurofeedback therapy is and how it
Sure.
works?
Absolutely. So neurofeedback therapy is a learning modality. So think about it as exercise for the brain.
Okay.
It's if we your brain functions in different modes, and when it's stuck in one mode over the other, that's when you start having those symptoms from, say, like, anxiety or ADHD, autism, even traumatic brain injuries, memory loss, and things like that. So what neurofeedback works to do is to get it unstuck so that it functions well no matter what it is that you're doing. And it's based on frequencies. So it directly affects the brain. And that's one of the differences. It's a computer-based program, and it's again, drug-free and non-invasive. The results can last up to 30 years, and in some cases up to 50. And it's just so transformational. Like, it's been around for over 50 years, but most people haven't heard of it. And that's my goal, is to make that more prevalent, and so that the impact can grow. Just because a lot of people are looking for something. I know I was. I'm like, and
absolutely.
the only option that you're given is medication. I'm like, there's got to be something else. There's got to be something else.
Right. And especially too, like, my biggest fear for my son when he was younger was, like, he's so young, like, to be recommended medication. Like, it's not something you think about your little kids, your littles, like littles, like being put on medication. And it is a little concerning because, my mentality was that he's so young, he shouldn't be on medication yet. This just shouldn't even be happening.
And he'll get older, and what are we going to do? Just increase the medication? Like, when does it stop?
Right.
And what's actually happening? Are we solving anything, or are we just putting a Band-Aid on it?
So now, can neurofeedback be done at any age?
Well, we typically don't work with people unless they're 5 years of age and older, because the training sessions require you to sit for 30 minutes watching something on a streaming device. So unless you have a very mature 4-year-old, typically it's 5 and up, when they enter.
Good luck with
when
that.
they enter first grade. Yeah.
Especially a 4-year-old with ADHD.
Yeah, it's not. No, oh my gosh, it's unheard of. And I'm not saying your child can't be the exception. I'm just saying traditionally.
Traditional,
5 years of age. Yes.
Yeah. So what types of conditions can neurofeedback therapy address, like, most effectively? I know we've talking about just ADHD right now mostly, but, and autism, but what types of other conditions can neurofeedback therapy help?
Sure. Traumatic brain injuries and concussions, memory loss. Some people use it as enrichment. Like my youngest daughter I mentioned is gift and accelerated. So, when she was about time for her to take the ACT and the SAT, I was like, hey, let's go do some training sessions. Let's get some scholarships. Like, let's boost our brain activity. Also, the anxiety and the depression, chronic pain as well, PTSD. Just think everything begins in the brain. I use it for stress relief. I use it to make sure my cognitive abilities are as tip-top as they can be. I mean, it's all encompassing.
Right. And I think anxiety and depression really go hand in hand with a lot of conditions. I mean, even just daily life, right? Mental health and wellness is so big right now. So have you seen improvement in patients, especially with anxiety? Like, I knows that sometimes Drayson gets into these high levels of anxiety. It's hard to de-escalate him.
And that's the thing. That's just, it's how the brain is wired. It's constantly in a state of, what that could happen, or that can happen. What about what? And so it's like a constant fight or flight. Like, what? So yes, absolutely. I remember I had this 8-year-old who was diagnosed with anxiety, and I'm like, he's 8.
Yes.
What? Yeah. And he ended up having an experience where he slept over. They had a party or something, and slept over, and one of the little boys there regurgitated. And it freaked him out. And he had a fear of regurgitating. He didn't want to eat anymore. He played sports. He was a baseball player. Knew at 8 years old he wanted to play in the major leagues. And he didn't want to go to school anymore. Like, it got compounded. And then I came to understand that his dad suffered from anxiety as well. And I was like, oh, okay. And the mom was like, yeah, I don't want him on medication like his dad. We're going to do something different. And he started working with me, and even just getting him to sit down, just to do the brain mapping, which is the first step to see. It's a baseline to see how the brain is functioning. It's a functional assessment. He just was having such difficulty just trying to stay calm and cool. And one of the things is when you're doing the brain mapping, any kind of tension or any kind of motion, it stops recording. So it's like, okay, just take a deep breath. Let's just relax and everything. And so we're able to get through the brain mapping, and then we started the program, and it was time for him to come back because on my programs they're done at home. And so
Mm-hmm.
all the brain training sessions are captured and the data is sent to my computer. And so I look for a particular pattern for everyone to reach. So he had reached that pattern, which meant that he mastered that protocol. And so I had to come back in for another brain mapping. And it went like that. And he said, wait a minute. He said, that was a lot shorter than the first time. He said, I could sit here and I didn't move around. I said, you sure didn't? You sure didn't. And I love when kids are self-aware, like, wait a minute, that was different from before. He had calmed down. His mom was saying, it's like he's a typical kid again. She said, nobody else knows what he was struggling with, but he loves going to school. He's back into playing baseball. He didn't have any fear of, regurgitating. He was eating the food at school, which I know can be a challenge sometimes. But he was back to a typical little boy. And she's like, oh my gosh, I have my son back.
Wow, that's amazing. And I think these are things that we don't think about. Like I had another guest on the show a couple episodes ago where she was talking about her 9-year-old daughter at 9, wanting to commit suicide. And I have a hard time wrapping my head around that concept because I don't remember feeling that way at that age. I don't remember as a little girl being even worried about anxiety or depression. I wonder sometimes why we're having such an influx of these problems happening right now with these kids, and it makes me worry for my kids.
Oh, sure. I would, and those are valid concerns, and I have a few ideas. I have a few understandings of why that's happening. Like, okay, when we grew up, we didn't have devices. We didn't have, the constant pressures of, trying to keep up with the Joneses. And do you have a phone at, 8, 7 years old? And what kind of phone do you have? And just, the whole children can be very mean.
Yes.
Worse coming from the parents because they learn it from somewhere, and just going outside to play. Like I played through the 8th grade. I remember going outside. I said I was outside. We were outside for at least a half hour because I know. It had to be an hour. Maybe we ate, for 15, 20 minutes. Then we can go outside and play for the rest of the time. Getting that vitamin D from the sun, getting the wiggles out, getting the fresh air, having creative play. That makes all the difference because you just get to let everything go. I remember how excited we were when our teachers said, hey, we're going to go outside today for, this lesson. I'm going to read you a book, outside. It's like, we're going outside. Like, woo,
everyone.
They don't go outside anymore.
Yeah,
they're on the phones and then they're not sleeping because they're the blue light. It's a whole combination of things. Not to mention, the pandemic that had everyone isolated. It's a lot. The food.
I feel like our societal pressures today are so much different than when we were kids. Same thing. I came from a house where we got home, we had a snack, we did our homework, we got kicked outside to play until dinner. And then we came back in for dinner, and then it was wind down for the rest of the day. Like that was, my grandmother helped, help raise my sister and I because my parents were building their business. And I remember very vividly, my Nana would be like, all right, go outside.
Bye. Yep.
We just knew. Even when we were done, we put our stuff down, we went outside. And that's what we did.
What's so funny? I it wasn't until I had children that, and they were, I was like, oh my gosh, like I need y'all to go outside or something. And I remember I was like, I had like an aha moment. I called my mom and I was like, oh my gosh. I said, I know why we were played outside all the time. I said, we were getting on your nerves. I said, and I never felt unloved. I never felt, like, you didn't care for me. I was just like, oh, we're going outside to play. I was like, now I get it,
Yes.
The outside play is it's so many intricacies of building relationships and learning how to work with other people and being creative, using a stick as a bat, using a curb as a base, just these little things that may mean nothing to someone, but they mean everything because you're forming new neural pathways every time you learn something new, every time you do something that you haven't done before. And our kids don't have that opportunity. I mean, I remember when I was living in an apartment, my neighbors had a little girl and she was a little younger than my youngest, but still, they played together. She said, "Are you going to watch them when they can play outside?" I'm like, "Why?" Like they're in the parking lot. I mean, it's not like they're in this acres and acres of. I'm just like, what? And it's.
I know because we've kind of run into being scared parents. Like I know.
Exactly.
I try really hard not to hover over Drayson, and it's very difficult for me to do. I'm not going to lie. Like it's hard. It's especially with the autism because I don't know if he's going to wander off or, Sure. And so it does. There's that nervousness, that fear. And it's always so funny to me though, because sometimes he will just instinctively go out in the backyard and he gets on the trampoline. And the other day I walked out and I went to go check on him. I just peeked out the window and he's laying on the trampoline in the sun. And he's just
Basking.
yeah. And I
Just
was like,
enjoying life.
I'm good with that. I'm just happy that he wants to be outside. And I've noticed that, but my husband and I really, really tried to create that environment with balance. So if he's playing something on his phone, he'll stop and he'll go. And usually I'll be watching the time, but always before time, he'll stop and he'll go outside. He'll go play for a little while. Then he comes back in, he'll do something else, and then he'll go back outside. Like I see him running back and forth all the time, but I like the fact that he likes to get outside. And I was talking to another mom the other day, and she was like, I can't get my kid to go outside. And I'm like, well, then you drag him outside and you lock the sliding glass door. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah,
I was saying, he has a choice.
I know, I'm just kidding. I know, but there was that part of me in the back of my head. I was like, well, you drag them outside and you put them, lock the door, and now they can't get in.
I mean, and it's the truth. There's truth in that. I mean, it worked for us. That's the thing. A lot of the things
she looked at me like I was the worst parent on the planet, though, when I said that. Which it was really, really funny. But
you didn't want to hear the truth. But yes, you got to get them outside. You have to give them that time. I remember I was looking at private schools when my daughters were younger, and I went to observe and everything, and it was right after lunch, and the class was in session, and the door had opened, and the principal and I are standing at the door. We stood there a good 5 to 8 minutes. No child turned around to look. No child. And then they looked, and I was like, wow. I said, they're really focused. She said, oh, yes, we go outside every day. They go outside every day, to get the wiggles out. Because, I was thinking, how many adults need to go outside every day to get the wiggles out so you can refocus after you eat, or just to have a break, know? So we are doing a disservice to our children to not give them the opportunity to just be.
Yeah. And that's something that I've personally started to incorporate for myself. Like, I mean, I'm here in Arizona, so we don't really have a quote unquote winter, right? It's not like I have to worry about snow here in the Phoenix Valley area. But that's one thing I've been trying to remind myself is that if I just step outside for a little bit, I feel so much better when I come back in, like just refreshing myself. Right. And I don't realize that those little small things make a big difference for me, just like they do for Drayson. And that's why I'm so glad that when he was a kid, I took him to the park all the time. I was outside with him. I would walk with him in the stroller outside. And I'm so grateful that I did those things, because I think that kind of, it programmed him to be able to do that. But It's like I said, I've talked to lots of parents, and I can't get him to go outside to play. And, like I said, I jokingly said it to the mom, but she goes, what do I do? And I said, you push him outside and you close the sliding glass door and lock it. He's in the backyard. He's fine.
He's fine. And he'll figure it out. He'll figure it out. And that's the thing. We don't, as parents, a lot of us don't give our children the time to figure things out. Like my I cook and I'm not saying I cook all the time. I want to, Right. However, this time I showed my daughters how to prepare chicken casserole. Just a simple. You have the box of macaroni and cheese. You have your canned chicken. You have a can of I think it was cream of chicken soup, and that's all you need, right? And so we have an electric can opener, And so anytime I'm cooking, I'm like, hey, come in here and open up this can for me, just so, mommy, open the can, And so it's hard. Open the can, I said, the more often you do it, it's practice. You'll be great at it. Well, this one particular night, I was at the office later. My patient appointment ran later, and I get a call, and I said, excuse me, it's my daughter. And so I said, hey, what's going on, mommy? We can't get the can opener to work. I said, really? I said, you called me about that. So all those times that we've practiced, I said, figure it out. And I hung up the phone. Yeah. And guess what? When I came home, dinner was ready.
They figured it out. Yeah.
Figured it out. I said, the electric can opener. You don't even have to put any elbow grease in it. That's not even the manual one. I said, I just, within confines, like appropriate figuring it out, not necessarily throw them to the wolves, but, give them an opportunity to say, oh, if I do this, then this, if I do this, then that. And
Sometimes you just say, we just pause. Yeah. That's what we call it, just pausing, like just pause. And there's times where my husband's had to stop me and I've had to stop him, because we're like, just let's see if he does it. Let's just see if he can, or if he will. Yes. And it's hard, because you just instinctively, you want to just jump right in. And it's hard to watch at first, but then you're like, okay, they can do it. But I need to stop enabling them, So,
Yes, yes.
so now you've mentioned your own personal experience with ADHD, and so tell me a little bit about how the neurofeedback therapy transformed your daughter's life and your perspective on treatment, because I know that that was something we talked about when we talked a couple months back together, you and
Oh
I.
my gosh. Oh my gosh. You know, when I first got the system, it was just done in the office, and so the goal was to have her come in 2 to 3 times a week, and yeah, so that didn't happen all the time because life was happening. I'm working over here, working over there,
Right.
being a taxi. I'd already been divorced from their dad, when they were 2 and 4.
Hmm.
So it was a lot of running around. And when I started her on the therapy, she would get upset with me if she was watching a movie and it wasn't over in 30 minutes because each training session is 30 minutes long. And
Okay.
she's like, no, mommy, no, I want to keep going. I'm like, no, sweetie, we have to give your brain time to rest and change and adapt. And, we have to have 4 hours in between. So we'll go do something and come back. And I'm like, wow, this is pretty cool if she doesn't want to stop, doing
Right.
the therapy. So
Right.
that was one of my concerns is, who wants to go to therapy? Like typically not many people. And so
Right.
as I started building my practice, I had parents too that said, oh my gosh, if he asked me one more time for going to therapy today, I'm going to lose it. And I'm like, hey, it's good that they like coming to therapy, right? I mean, it's
Right.
worse things, but the children, sit there for 30 minutes uninterrupted. They're watching a movie or a television show and their parents are happy about it. So, it was a good
Right.
thing. So started working with my daughter, and the phone was ringing, less and less from school with her getting in trouble. She wasn't asking for help, anymore for doing her homework. And I remember my younger daughter told me, Mommy, you don't yell at her like you used to. And I was like, ooh, I become a yeller. I'm
Yeah.
tired. I'm getting home
Yeah.
at 7 o'clock. I have to make dinner. I have to help her with homework till midnight every night. That's a
Yeah.
lot. It's a
You're in
lot.
a constant state of fight or flight, I feel like sometimes as a
Constant.
mom. Yeah.
Constant.
Yeah.
And then I remember my ex-husband came in town one weekend, and she had a project to do. My oldest daughter had a project to do. I'd already purchased everything she needed. I was like, whoo, one assignment I don't have to help her with, one
Right.
project. And so I just, gave everything to him. And that weekend I was just like, oh, wow, this feels really good. And so, we got them back. I got them back, and, the project had been completed. And he called me the next day. He said, oh my gosh, I didn't realize how much work it takes. You have to explain it to her 10 times and then go back over another 8 and then show her, 5 examples and then go back again. I said, every day of my life. I said, every day of my life. I said, when you come home from work, guess what? Your day is over. When I come home, my second job begins and it doesn't end until midnight every night. I said, so people don't get it. They
Yeah.
don't get it. Even my daughter's child psychologist is one of my sorority sisters, and we happen to vacation together. And so, she and her husband have a daughter, and it's just
Mhm.
my 2 girls. And so the girls, had gone to bed. How girls giggle, summer party, whatever. And so we're sitting in the living room, and they each asked me, how do you do it? Like you have to like redirect her and then explain that, and and I'm thinking,
Mhm.
especially my sorority sister, I'm like, this is what you do all the time. Like, what do you mean? How do you do it? But when
Yeah.
she goes, I didn't realize when she goes home, her daughter doesn't have these challenges, so she
Right.
gets to just fully relax. And I'm like, wow, that was like a whoa. Like people don't get it if they're not in it. If they're not in
No,
it,
and I've experienced the same thing. It's like they don't understand, like when the day ends, it doesn't end for me. It doesn't,
no,
it's a constant
constant,
until that child goes to bed, and then
and hopefully through the night.
and hopefully through the night, yes, and sleeps through the night. Like it's like just those few quiet moments that I get at the end of the day, and then sometimes I'm like, I really should go to bed. And then I'm like, I just want to sit here in the quiet and I want to do
And enjoy
something that
it.
I want to do. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm Candace. I'm not mommy.
Yeah.
It's yes,
Right.
yes. Well,
Yeah.
continuing with my daughter, and she, was getting better, and I remember one day my mother-in-law called. I still called my in-laws. Thank God that because I've heard some stories about when you get a divorce, they become
Yeah.
outlaws, but they was love my in-laws, and she called me up and she said, well, she's just blossomed into herself, hasn't she? And I said, yes, she has. So thank you, God, and thank you, neurofeedback, because she was
Hmm.
holding conversation on the telephone longer. Like it wasn't like a yes, no, okay,
I'm
good.
fine.
No, she was
Yeah.
like having a conversation,
And
and everybody was like, whoa, like what's going on? I'm like, yeah, those neural pathways are forming and they're firing well. So just love that. And her grades just improved. I mean, by the time she was in high school, She got A's in honors chemistry and physics.
That's amazing.
I asked a parent-teacher conference. I said, is she focused? And they said, oh, she's the most focused in class. She keeps her peers on task. And I was like, whoa, she keeps her peers on task. She'll say, no, we're doing this. And then I'm like, okay, like my child. They're like, yeah. I'm like, oh, okay. So this is working. So very transformative. It's a life-changing therapy.
That's amazing. And so do you think, why do you think the neurofeedback is an appealing solution for parents of children with ADHD or any other neurological condition for that matter, who are maybe a little cautious about medication? So,
Sure.
So what is it that you think makes it such an appealing solution?
Well, there are zero negative side effects with neurofeedback. I have so many parents who are like, oh my gosh, like, especially like with ADHD, one of the number one side effects is loss of appetite. Well, my daughter is thin. Like, she could be a model just naturally, just eats whatever she wants and stays the same, Right. And between that and making sure that their brains are working well before they go away to school. Because if you have them on some of those medications, guess what? You think your child is going to take those medications when they go to college.
Yeah.
They'll either sell them or they'll take recreational medication, recreational drugs. And that's a whole nother ball of wax,
Right.
And then also just the non-invasive part. So I've had parents ask me, like on a discovery call, are you going to inject them with anything? No, I don't. I wouldn't inject my own daughter with something. Are you going to shock them? I'm like,
oh
no,
my gosh.
non-invasive means, yeah. I'm like, this isn't shock therapy. No. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt. The only discomfort you may have is wearing the cap for the brain mapping, which feels like a swim cap. That's, right. The pressure, but that's it. No. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, what do people think I'm doing with their children? But no. So just another way to affect the brain without medication, without those side effects. And with the fact that it lasts so long, that's right. The thing too, because just like you take medication, once it wears off, guess what? Here come the symptoms, they come back. So with this, like, and she's not ever been on any kind of medications. I'm so thankful. And that light that she has, that inner, her spirit is just so bright. She's just, my nickname for her is Sweet, because she's been such a sweetheart, like forever. Just a hug, just very huggy right. and calming. She's always been that way. So now that she's able to, regulate her emotions and she's able to stay focused, and I don't have to help her with homework anymore. She's doing well now. She's in college. She's in her junior year. She's studying to be an environmental chemist. She wants to save the planet and the world. And I didn't know that. You remember the movie The Lorax?
Yes.
And that
he's
got rid of all the trees and everything. Yeah. Yes. And I didn't realize that that's how she decided she wanted to do something. She wanted to study environmental, to be an environmental chemist, because she wanted to find a way to save. And I was like, wow. I read an essay that she wrote. I was like, I didn't know that's why. She's like, oh yes, mommy. And she put that quote in there, unless someone cares an awful lot, nothing changes. Nothing's going to change. It's not, or something like that.
It's not.
And so same thing. You keep doing the same thing over and over again, and you're expecting a different result. You got to do something different.
It's got to do something
different. This is something different. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I love it. Well, we're going to continue our talk into next week with part 2 with Dr. Holmes, but I want to tell you, thank you so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate it. This concludes. I appreciate you having me. I'm so excited. And like I said, for our listeners, please stay tuned for part 2 next week, because this is going to be a fantastic episode. So this concludes our episode for today. If you have questions, comments, or even a show topic that you'd like to hear about, please feel free to send me an email at info@piecesformypuzzle.com. I'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to like and follow us on Facebook and Instagram if you haven't already, or feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Pieces for My Puzzle. If you like what you're hearing, please spread the word to others that this might help. And also feel free to give us a good rating on your preferred podcast platform of choice. Until next time, thanks for tuning in. Keep working on your puzzle. And remember, you don't have to have it all solved in a day. Take care.